Are you unsure that you're getting the results that you really should be getting out of your marketing department? We get it. It's really difficult sometimes, especially from an owner standpoint, to know exactly what you should be tracking, how to hold your marketing manager accountable, especially if you don't have marketing experience. It's difficult to know maybe what the KPIs are that you should be looking at on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We understand that that's really difficult. And today we're going to dive into how to determine what those KPIs are and how to actually hold your marketing manager accountable so that you're driving revenue and you're getting the results that you're looking for. I'm Elizabeth Lytle. I am our head of community here at Contractor Dynamics, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Sydney, our marketing director, and we are going to dig in today. Sydney, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sydney Carell. I am the marketing director here at Contractor Dynamics. I am really excited to chat with y'all about this particular topic because it's something that I'm held accountable to on a regular basis. But I also, as a marketing trainer previously here at Contractor Dynamics, have helped owners hold their marketing managers accountable and have also played a role in helping hold their marketing manager accountable to the specific things they say they're going to do, specific KPIs that they're going to meet. And so I'm really excited to dive into this topic today.
Yeah, I am too. Now, Sydney, share this a little bit. You actually have some experience being a marketing manager for a roofing company. So I think it'd be good to hear a little bit about your experience to show that you've sat in that seat and you can relate to this particular issue.
Yes, definitely. So I have worn the marketing hat at two different roofing companies. I'm located in Colorado. And so that was a really enjoyable experience. But a lot of the times, I think for roofing company owners who maybe, like you said, don't have the experience with marketing, sometimes they don't really know, like, how to effectively lead their marketing manager. And so the marketing manager can sometimes like end up on an island. They don't really know what they should be working on. So they kind of create their own plan. They may not know what the vision of the company is. And so I've been in a position where I felt like that before, but I've also been in positions where I've been really well led by folks as a marketing manager. So yeah, I've been able to kind of experience the best of both worlds, and I'm excited to bring that particular insight to today's conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you're an owner and you're here with us in this video today, if you take the specific metrics and the system that we're going to walk you through, and you hold your marketing manager accountable to the particular measurables that we're going to talk through today, then what you're going to see is better results out of your marketing. You're going to catch issues much sooner, so you'll waste a lot less money, which of course leads to more profitability. You're going to be getting really significantly better results, but also you're going to know fairly quickly whether or not you have the right people in the right seats. Because sometimes what we find is maybe we need to do a little bit of adjustment to have the right people in the right seats in order to get those results that we're looking for in order to really drive that revenue. So if that's you, if that's what you're here for, then that is what you're going to get out of today. So, Sydney, let's dive in and talk about some of the things that you need to do to really hold that seat accountable.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is that you need to get really clear on what specific KPIs you're measuring. And the reason that that's so important is because I've talked with marketing managers who, are clients of ours before, and sometimes marketing managers will get frustrated because they're like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job or if I'm doing a poor job because I don't know what standard I'm being measured against. And that's where KPIs are so important because it makes it very clear whether things are green on the scorecard or whether they're red on the scorecard. Are we hitting the goals or are we not hitting the goals? Are we completing the action items or not? And so that makes the accountability piece a lot more simple, less complicated, because we can very clearly see if there needs to be accountability in place as a result of that. So I recommend always starting with the KPIs and getting clear on that piece before you go into any like accountability conversations of any sort.
Now, Sydney, a moment ago you said on the scorecard, just in case for some of our listeners who are not really sure what that means or are not really sure where to put their KPIs or even where to find them, what would you recommend and what would you say is a score? Can you explain what a scorecard is a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So at Contractor Dynamics, we run on EOS. EOS is sort of a like business management sort of style to help you get clear on your metrics throughout your business. And this particularly can apply to the marketing department. So within the marketing department, you would develop a scorecard, which would include key KPIs that you should be tracking in the marketing department on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. So, as a part of EOS, that's what we use. That's what we encourage our clients to use. And in fact, throughout the rest of this conversation, we can actually include screenshots. We have created a score of what a scorecard should look like for a roofing company, just to give you kind of an idea of what you should start with, what specific metrics you should be tracking. So as we talk about the different ways to track these different KPIs and in the weekly metrics, the monthly metrics, etc., we'll include screenshots so that you can replicate that same sort of scorecard within your own business.
Now, one thing I do want to say before we jump into individual KPIs is this, Sydney. I met with a business owner yesterday who they're looking into some marketing training. They're excited to dig into marketing, and they described their marketing recently as they didn't say spray and pray like we like to say, but they said they're just trying things as they come across the desk. So things pop up, and they're like, "That looks cool. Let's try it. Somebody else did that. Let's try it." And before they knew it, we're here getting to the end of the year, and all of a sudden they've spent all this money and they're not really sure what they're getting. And I asked them if they'd been doing some consistent meetings, and they said, well, we're in the office all the time kind of talking. But the reality is, without that consistent meeting with KPIs, like you're talking about, it's really, really difficult to track things effectively. It's really difficult to make sure we're circling back to what we started 2 weeks ago and confirming whether or not that worked or not. So we would certainly recommend a weekly meeting where we're focused in on marketing. Anything to add on that, Sydney?
Yeah, I definitely think that that weekly meeting is important. And like you said, really addressing the specific KPIs is important. But another thing that is important is to also keep track of what to dos come out of evaluating those KPIs. So a lot of people will say, oh, that number is lower than it should be. We should improve that number. This is what we're going to do to improve it. But like you said, we don't circle back to it. So if you actually use a system for accountability with those to dos, then that will, you assign deadlines, you make sure that they're completed. We have a general understanding from all included parties that things need to be completed by the deadlines. And if they're not, how do we pivot and adjust to that? That's a really important thing, too. One of the other things that I just wanted to add is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We use specific softwares at CD, and our clients also use these softwares as well. We use a software called 90, and that software allows you to hold this scorecard to keep track of those to dos. So as we're going throughout this conversation, I just want you to know that when you see the screenshots, that's where those are coming from. And you don't necessarily have to recreate this in like a spreadsheet or something. You can use a specific software to help you just come right out the gate with that designed and ready to go to help you to succeed.
Well, let's talk about what some of those KPIs are. I know from an owner's seat, if I don't know a ton of marketing, the main thing I'm going to be focused on is, are we getting leads and are we making sales? But I know there's a lot more that goes into it. So let's talk about what those KPIs are.
I would essentially categorize our KPIs into a few different key categories. What I'm not going to do today is just list off every single KPI that you should be tracking and what each of those KPIs mean, because I'm just going to be honest, you will click off of this video or this recording as soon as you possibly can, because it's going to feel like the teacher in Charlie Brown, right? And we don't want that. So what I'm going to do instead is just give you the screenshot of what you should be tracking. You can copy and paste that, and then I'm going to divide this up into three key categories and talk about why we should be tracking those particular categories. So the first category of weekly KPIs that we should be tracking is lead metrics. So we should be tracking how many leads we're getting. We should be tracking our cost per lead, our qualified lead percentage, those types of lead metrics in order to give us a picture week over week if we're hitting our goal. This will help us to understand if we are on track or if we're behind where we should be in terms of our lead pacing, since that is a key metric that the marketing department is driving week over week. This is the top metric that you should be tracking within your marketing scorecard. So I would definitely say that leads are going to be the first category. The second category are going to be inspections or appointments, you could say. So, how many of those leads are actually turning into appointments? That's important for us to know, because that will indicate to marketing if those leads are high quality. one of the things that we see time and time and time again when we're working with clients is they will come to us and they'll say, well, I've gotten all these leads, but for some reason, it's not resulting in the amount of revenue that I'm wanting it to. In fact, I'm actually working with this with one of our clients right now, and they're a massive roofing company. I mean, like massive. And so they haven't gotten super clear on this part of their business. And so what we did was we dug into these metrics and determined that the fall off was from leads to appointments, which indicates to me that if there's a bunch of fall off there, then we have a lead quality problem. And so we were able to dig into their lead sources, determine where the lead quality issues were, and make optimizations from there. So that's the reason that we need to be tracking how many appointments and inspections that we're actually doing, and that we're scheduling as a result of the leads that we're getting in the marketing department. So I would say that's the key second component of KPIs that we should be tracking. And then the third is sales. This is really the end all be all in marketing. We want to make sure that the money we're putting in results in an ROI, return on ad spend, money that we are getting back. And if that calculation is not working out and we're noticing that what we're putting into generating leads is less than what we're getting back in sales, then we have a problem, and we can identify that problem and begin to optimize it. So those are the three key categories that I would encourage you to identify for tracking weekly KPI metrics so that you can measure overall how your marketing department is doing week over week. With that said, is there anything that you would want to add to that in particular, Elizabeth?
Well, the one thing that I do think I see very commonly when I start to ask owners to give me some more information about the marketing that they're doing is that some of them may even be looking at some of the metrics that you're talking about, but they're not looking at them by the individual sources. And so they're not really sure where their, as you were saying, qualified leads are coming from. So would you recommend that we look at every individual source, that we look at a big bulk of leads as a whole? What would you recommend in terms of that balance?
I definitely think that we should be looking at individual sources in order to determine how many leads are coming from where and to determine if those leads are qualified. So, how many of those particular leads, let's just say we're talking about meta ads, how many of the leads that came from meta ads actually turned into appointments? That's an important thing for us to know based on individual platforms so that we can accurately diagnose where the problems are in our marketing and can adjust when necessary. Now, the quick caveat that I will say is that if you are tracking this week over week, which you totally can do, if you're tracking this week over week, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a delay. So it's not common that somebody will fill out a form on Facebook to contact you, get an inspection done the same day, sign the estimate the same day, and then close, right? Actually pay you. That is a process that usually takes months, especially if you are like supplementing and you're in the insurance world. That stuff takes time. And so what you're going to see is a bit of a delay between the time that it takes for someone to become a lead versus becoming an appointment versus becoming a sale and actually paying you on closing that deal. So, with that delay in mind, you can assess this on a weekly basis, but if you're going to do that, just know that your metrics are going to kind of match up a little bit unevenly, just as it takes time for people to kind of move through that pipeline. So, usually I recommend that it is imperative. Like you absolutely should be tracking this on a monthly basis because it allows you to kind of zoom out a little bit more when it comes to analyzing those KPIs so that, like I said, you're not having to like pair metrics from 3 weeks ago to this week to determine how your leads have turned into inspections. So kind of zooming out a little bit more might give you a more accurate picture for how things are looking when it comes to individual lead sources, but you definitely should be tracking them on an individual lead source basis.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have a good example of that. One of our clients who onboarded with us, I guess it's been a year and a half ago, he came on and he was talking about how he felt like he was doing some pretty good tracking. He was able to tell us how many leads he had and the revenue he was getting. But when we dug in, what we realized was when he said leads, he meant appointments. He wasn't tracking the lead to appointment ratio at all. In fact, the leads that didn't turn into appointments, he just ditched them and didn't even save them in his CRM. So he really didn't have enough data on maybe why there was a fall off from lead to appointment, or even where he was getting the most leads from versus the highest quality leads. So he made a big shift, and then he was able to really realize that, number one, there was an area where they weren't doing good enough speed to lead and follow up to get that appointment set. So they were able to tweak that particular marketing source and get better results. And then number two, there was one of their marketing sources where they were pouring a lot of money that wasn't really producing great results. Even though they were having appointments, they were really not good appointments. So once he started tracking that on a more regular basis, he was able to get much better results from his marketing and waste a lot less money on sources that weren't making any sense. So it gives you a lot more clarity and a lot more data driven decision making when you're able to really look at these on a regular basis. So you've been talking about monthly metrics as well. What would you recommend that owners and marketing managers look at on a monthly basis?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, your individual lead sources and your cost per lead on those individual lead sources is going to be imperative to look at on a monthly basis. And when I say per lead source, I'm talking you should have a cost per lead metric for meta ads versus Google local service ads versus Google pay per click ads versus your referrals. If you're investing in like gifting or closing gifts, or you offer referral bonuses or anything like that to people, then there is a cost associated with that. So you should be tracking how many referrals you're getting and your cost per referral as well. So each individual lead source should have specific lead KPIs attached to it. So that's one thing that I would definitely recommend tracking on a monthly basis. In addition to that, you should be tracking brand awareness metrics on a monthly basis. So brand awareness metrics are going to be those things like you're investing in billboards, or you're investing in radio ads, or you're investing in brand awareness meta ads. If you're investing in any sort of brand awareness, like if you're sponsoring a little league team or anything like that, you should be tracking what types of results you're getting from those. And the reason that I particularly recommend tracking brand awareness metrics on a monthly basis instead of a weekly basis is because brand awareness takes time to build. It's something that if you analyze it on a week over week basis, it wouldn't give you a ton of additional insight as to how to do brand awareness better because you're too zoomed in on the metrics. So by zooming out and looking at it on a monthly basis, you can have a more clear picture of what's going on with your brand awareness performance. So some examples of brand awareness performance include like total links or total link clicks to your website, like how many website visitors are you getting, your cost per ad recall lift on your meta ads, click-through rates, impressions like on billboards and things like that. Those are things that we should be tracking month over month just so we can see general improvements and also decreasing costs over time. In theory, that's what we prefer to see with our brand awareness components.
Now, Sydney, some of the things we're talking about in terms of lead quality, in terms of appointments, that kind of thing, some of that information is going to come from the sales team, right? The marketing manager is going to need access to that kind of information. What do you think is a good cadence for the marketing and the sales team in order to really be on the same page? What kind of communication should they be having?
I would say at a bare minimum, a marketing manager should be tagging up with either your sales manager or your sales team as a whole on a monthly basis. You can tag up a little bit more frequently if you have an abundant amount of leads coming in and you need more quick feedback on those leads, then you can tag up more regularly, maybe on a weekly basis. But I definitely recommend at a minimum the marketing manager collaborating with the sales team on that monthly basis. The reason that that's so important is because that will help the marketing manager understand what's actually happening out in the field so that they can adjust and tailor their marketing messages to actually appeal to the market because the salespeople know what the market is feeling. And so the marketing manager is not the person who's out there talking to homeowners. And so in order for them to get that feedback and be able to provide an accurate and appealing marketing message, they need that feedback from the sales team. In addition to that, they also need feedback from the sales team on the quality of the leads. If the marketing manager is feeling really good about themselves because they've acquired hundreds of new leads, and the sales team is over there frustrated because they're spinning their wheels, wasting their time calling all these fake leads, or people are telling them on the phone, don't call me again, I didn't fill out the form, well, that's kind of frustrating, right? But the marketing manager needs to have that feedback so that they can adjust their marketing accordingly so that they can dial in that process for the sales team.
That's right. Yeah. That's so important for marketing and sales to really operate in such a fluid, collaborative way, because we're talking about these metrics, and the reality is if you're an owner and you're holding that marketing manager accountable, well, we need to make sure we're holding the sales team accountable as well to providing that kind of information, and holding the marketing manager accountable to taking that initiative, to going out, to asking those questions, to discovering that information, so that again we're all working together, we're getting better and better results. Those benchmarks that we're hitting, they're actually realistic benchmarks because we have the information we need to be able to get there. Now let me ask you this, Sydney. If we have just a marketing manager right now, and that's the whole marketing team, then obviously the owner and the marketing manager need to be meeting on a regular basis. But what if we have that content creator, maybe the social media manager, maybe we have a marketing assistant, maybe we have a business development or events person? What about those people? Should those people be in weekly marketing meetings?
100%. Yes. Similarly to how a marketing manager and an owner will kind of operate in silos if they're not communicating effectively, your marketing director and their marketing team members will also operate in silos if they're not communicating effectively. And in order for you to all row in the same direction, you have to have that built in communication cadence for your marketing team. So, with that said, the cadence that we follow at Contractor Dynamics is we have a weekly marketing meeting where we meet with all of our marketing team members and we're all rowing in the same direction together. In addition to that group meeting, though, it's also really important that whoever is leading your marketing department, if you have multiple marketing team members, that the marketing director is meeting one on one with each of those individual marketing team members so that they can effectively lead individuals, not just the whole team, but individuals. And we could do a whole podcast on how to effectively run those individual meetings and those marketing team meetings, but you absolutely should be meeting one on one with each marketing team member, and you should be having a marketing team meeting as a whole.
That's right. When we get everybody on the same page, so that the content creator, the social media person isn't just out getting the content that seems interesting and cool to them that day, then again we're wasting a lot less time, we're a lot more focused, our message is a lot clearer, we're going to cut through the noise a lot better. That business development person is going to make sure that they're consistently on a regular basis saying, hey, here are the people who we could develop some relationships with, or I saw these interesting events, does that fit in with our marketing plan? That way we're all again, like you're saying, we're rowing in the same direction. I love that. That's great. Well, Sydney, is there anything else that a owner should be looking at or talking to their marketing manager about, maybe on a monthly or quarterly basis, that we didn't cover?
Yes. So, a couple other elements that we'll want to dive deeper into, aside from leads, qualified leads, leads by source, are going to be our social metrics. So, you're going to want to track what's going on your organic social media. Again, this is something that you should talk about on a monthly or a quarterly basis. You're going to need to zoom out because as you're posting this consistent content, that's going to give you the data that you need to make pivots in your social media strategy. So, things you should be tracking include the number of followers that you have on each key platform, the amount of engagement that you're getting on each key platform, the amount of reach you're getting on each key platform. And if you're noticing like a big spike or a huge tank, you need to take special attention and pay attention to the things that are actually working or not working with your social media marketing plan. In addition to that, this is not a KPI, but it is something that you should be analyzing and adjusting every single month. You should go through all of the content that has been posted, let's say over the last month, take note of which pieces of content have been doing the best in terms of the amount of engagement that you're getting, and then do more of that type of content. The data will tell you what you should be doing and what your audience is attracted to. So, if you want to maximize the amount of results that you're getting on social media, you just need to follow the data. So, on a monthly basis, I definitely recommend that your marketing manager go through that particular data and take note of what's working in order to adjust the future social media plan in order to really attract the right kinds of people in your market.
That's right. Now, Sydney, this is a little off track here, but it's in line with what we need to be looking at on a regular basis. I had a marketing manager reach out to me yesterday. She's a part of our Nailed It Facebook group, our free Facebook group where we're doing live trainings and that kind of thing. She reached out to me and said, "Well, we're getting so much more engagement that we've ever gotten. We've gotten a lot more followers. People are commenting on my videos. Somebody said something to me at the parade that we went to recently about seeing our videos, and I felt really good. But the owner is frustrated because I'm not driving revenue. And she is specifically in charge of the social media side of things, not the ads, just the organic social media. So, from an owner's standpoint, what do we need to know to understand why that work that social media person is doing and why those KPIs are even important to be tracking?
Yeah, so social media metrics are very similar to brand awareness metrics. In fact, I would definitely classify them as a brand awareness metric. And what that means is that it is going to take significantly longer to see the results. Now, what I would tell that social media manager that you were speaking about is I would want to make sure that the engagement and the reach that they're getting is within their local market. And if it is, then it is going to result in an ROI in the future. Definitely. We've seen it time and time again. There is this mindset around social media that it needs to produce like an immediate ROI. It needs to be very lead generation-y, where you're saying book an inspection, book an inspection, book an inspection. But in the modern way of marketing, that is how you turn people off in your local communities immediately. And so if you want to ruin a relationship on social media, that is the way you do it. You oversaturate your content with lead generation, take action now style of content. But if you are creating effective content that is building that relationship, what ends up happening further down the road, and this is not always trackable, so I'm going to just share that quick caveat, but what will happen further down the road is you will get a phone call from a lead and they knew they wanted to work with you because they've seen you everywhere. They'll say that, I've seen you everywhere. That's a good indication that your social media is probably doing really well. There may be some other marketing areas that are doing really well too. But that particular person is not going to tell you their entire journey, every single social media post that they saw. But the social media posts that they did see made them feel good enough to reach out to you when they were ready. So that's the importance of social media. It's been a huge shift, I'd say, over the past like 5 years or so, seeing how social media has shifted drastically to like this interest based graph, and it's very relational. But that is the nature of social media. And if you want to be successful on social media and actually build relationships within your local market, you have to post content that is not super straightforward and talking about lead generation all the time.
And isn't that the goal to hear to show up to an appointment or to have someone call in and say, "Man, I see you everywhere." That's It's very difficult to achieve that if we're not showing up where the attention is, right? Which is why it's so important to hold your team accountable to these kinds of metrics. And your sales team will have a much easier time when they show up and somebody says, "I've seen a video of you before," than if they're just a complete stranger. So very important metrics to be tracking for sure. Well, Sydney, is there anything specifically with SEO or our website traffic that we should be looking at on a weekly or monthly basis?
Yes. Similarly, SEO is one of those situations where if you zoom in too close, you're not going to see the forest through the trees. And so I highly encourage you to look at this on a monthly basis. If you are working with an SEO agency, you absolutely should be looking at this on a monthly basis because you're investing in this marketing channel. So you should be analyzing your specific website traffic, where is it coming from? You should be analyzing how long people are engaging on your website. I actually just talked with a client yesterday who said they're working with an agency who said they didn't want to turn a particular campaign off because it is driving so much traffic to their website. And I said, "Oh, that's great. Let's open up your Google Analytics and look at the traffic." We looked at the traffic, and those people were spending less than a second on the website. And so they were coming to the website and they were bouncing. And I'm like, Okay, well, there's some point to fall off because people are getting to the website, but they're not staying there. So that is, although the vanity metrics, I'd call them, look great, it's not translating in the way that it should be. So, analyzing your traffic by source, understanding how people are engaging with your website, how many people are searching for your brand name specifically is also really important because that's an indication of how well your brand awareness is doing. That basically what that means is someone is going into Google and instead of searching roofer near me, they're searching for insert your roofing company name. So, that is a better search than roofing company near me because they are specifically seeking you out. And that means that your brand awareness is working. So we can measure that through website analytics, traffic, those results. And then in addition to that, there are a ton of other SEO metrics that you should be tracking, like backlinks and specific keywords and keyword volume and things like that. I'm not going to get into the weeds on all of that data necessarily. But if you are working with an SEO company, you're going to want to evaluate those on a monthly basis, analyze the trends, and then bring conversation topics to your meeting with your SEO agency based on what you're seeing in the data.
Now, Sydney, I know that we're talking about monthly metrics right now, correct? Should SEO be something, should those website analytics be something that we're looking at all on a weekly basis, or should we really only look on a monthly basis? I ask that because I know that most SEO companies will maybe once a month they'll send an email with some charts and some graphs, but ideally obviously we want to really be digging in. So should we look at anything on a weekly basis or just review that chart on a monthly?
I would say you should analyze trends on a weekly basis. So, what that means is like, I'm not asking you on a weekly basis to go in and like pull how many new backlinks you have and to pull how much brand search volume you have for these particular couple of days. But when you're looking at the data from a monthly basis, I would encourage you to notice what weeks are performing better and what weeks are performing worse. And then look at that under a microscope so that you can see what actually happened during that week where things were tanking or what actually happened during that week where things were doing really well so that you can replicate whatever was happening during that particular week. Now, like I said, if you're looking at that on a weekly basis, it's going to be kind of hard to tell what that looks like unless you're looking at a little bit more data. But anytime you see spikes or huge downturns, that's where you need to really zoom in, especially when it comes to SEO metrics. And if you notice anything, like let's say you're looking at data from the past month, but you notice that last week data was tanking, then that might be a good opportunity to reach out to your SEO agency right now rather than waiting for your meeting that's 3 weeks from now. That's definitely something. If you're noticing any areas where things are doing really well or really bad, set up a meeting so you can dig into why and then pivot more immediately with that strategy.
Yeah. One thing I will say, just to repeat this to make sure that we say this really clearly, is if you miss that monthly meeting with your SEO company, reschedule it. Get it back on the schedule. Don't wait 4 more weeks to get together, because there are important adjustments that should be made on a regular basis in order to keep that trend where you're getting better and better results. So make sure you're having those meetings. And if you're a marketing manager, you are responsible for digging in with those agencies, asking questions and holding them accountable to the metrics that you expect as well. So make sure you're asking those tough questions, you're doing this tracking that Sydney's talking about, and you're holding them accountable to the results that you want. Well, Sydney, anything else that we haven't covered in terms of having that accountability and making sure we've got some good benchmarks for our marketing department?
No, I think the only other thing that I'll add is that we kind of talked a little bit about like monthly and quarterly metrics. Quarterly metrics are going to look very similar. The KPIs that you should be tracking are going to be very similar to what you should be tracking on a monthly basis, if not the same. The only other thing I would maybe add in to analyze on a quarterly basis is your customer acquisition costs, just to make sure that you have a really good idea of what's going on there. But everything that I mentioned that you should be tracking on a monthly basis, you should also be tracking on a quarterly basis. Just so quarter over quarter, you can see how like seasonality affects your marketing. You can see if you need to pivot year over year. It will just give you a different story to understand from your data. So I just wanted to add that quick note about quarterly metrics that we should be tracking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, if you are an owner and you have been listening to this today, like we said, we highly recommend that if you don't have those meetings, make sure you've got those meetings on the calendar, something recurring that you're doing consistently. If you do have those meetings, but you haven't been tracking, take a look at 90, like we discussed. We would highly recommend utilizing that software. We've been using it for quite some time at Contractor Dynamics. Many of our clients use it as well. It makes it really simple. So, like Sydney said, don't reinvent the wheel. You can use something that already exists out there. It's going to give you a really clear dashboard so that you're going to have a really good understanding of what's going on. And like we said, see better results, catch things faster, and really be able to drive revenue. Sydney, I know we've got some other awesome videos coming up. What can people expect next from the podcast?
Yeah, so if you heard us today talking about that big marketing team, maybe with the videographer and the social media manager and the events manager, and you're thinking, wow, how does a company get to that? How do I know if I'm ready to hire a social media manager? Who's the next person that I should hire? We are specifically in the next video going to be covering how to know if you are ready to hire a social media manager. So if you're curious about that particular topic, stay tuned, and this video will translate right into that next one, and we'll see you on the other side.